I was trained by Tojo Yamamoto, and before we ever got on a mat, Tojo would have me ride up and down the road with him, and he'd reach and get my ear. He'd say, Chopin, and and then he would twist my ear and say, now, Chopin. And I'd go, oh, hell. It was to originally be just a WWE gimmick. But Matt was able to take the expressions of Doink. And I don't think anybody else could have done that. He was able to take the facial expressions and show the people when Doink was happy, when he was sad, when he was mad, when he was angry. And that's not an easy job.
When I broke into the business, my dad, man of very few words. He never complimented me when I went out there and had a really good match. But he would let me know with just a look, that was good. If I went out there and screwed up, he would let me know. But he just gave his approval, a man of few words, and first thing he ever told me, and the thing that stood out the most.
But kayfabe is a whole mental attitude, and it has to do with the facial expressions that we're talking about, and believing what was going on in the ring, believing it yourself. We were, by all standards, poor, but everybody in our neighborhood was poor, so it was not something that you felt bad about. I was blessed with a mother who had instilled great ambition, and found out that I could, the sports editors in the town were not used to being called on, so I found out that I could take somebody down the street and buy them, back then a meat and three was like $3, buy them a $3 lunch, and they'd give me a great big write-up in the paper about the matches. So I really promoted. As a consequence, my town started really drawing, and so I was well received by the wrestlers. Nick Goulas had some very good qualities about him, but boy, he had some real stinking qualities about him too. And he would be condescending to wrestlers. If a bad referee will turn around and see the heel or bad guy cheating, and then look back off like, oh, I didn't see that. And a good referee, if he turns around and sees it, will react to it.
Yeah. When you're telling this story, it makes me think about the way guys used to get broke into the business. They used to have to travel, be around, not any training in the ring, but just be around the boys, learn to respect the boys and respect the business, and then they get smartened up a little bit at a time. That's the way I remember it.
And get stretched a lot.
And get stretched a lot. And then I can remember Fuji bringing Larry Sharp over to my dad's house, over to our house.
And as bad as that movie was, and as bad an actors as they were, the excitement was the danger of falling off of a high thing. Click, the light went on, we'll build a scaffold over the ring.
So you actually are the one that started that match?
The first. Paul, are you afraid of heights? No, hell no. I said, well, we've got a scaffold match here that is kind of like the ultimate match. And, oh yeah, I know about it. I'll be glad to do it. Bell rings, bell rings. So I run over to the hillside and I said, Paul, come on, let's go. He said, I ain't going. I said, what do you mean you ain't going? I can't go. Why'd you tell me you would? Well,
So what'd you do?
I fired him.
Really?
Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee had this love-hate relationship. They were both very jealous of each other professionally. And so I kept booking them against each other for 10 years, and they would beat the hell out of each other in a work kind of way. Matt knows what I'm talking about. I had an opportunity through cable television to have USA Network.
Wow.
And so I took it, and Jim called me and said, look, you're going to destroy the business, because when this cable TV, if it takes, I called Fargo and I said, Jackie, will you pass the torch if I found 2 people that are suitable? And he said, don't send me no jabronis, kid. Kerry called and said, we're going under. Kevin and I are going under. Would you be interested in buying the territory? And I said, no, not really. I'm pretty happy getting to the city. He said, well, I said, do you have the building? He said, yeah, but we owe them a lot of money. I said, what about TV? He said, no, they cut us off last week. I said, well, what do you have? What are you trying to sell? He said, the business. And I said, well, it doesn't sound like you got a business. Kevin and Kerry, and I said, here's the deal. It will cost me $50,000. I'll need about $20,000 operating money. I'll put the $70,000 in, and I want 51%, and I'll give y'all 49 to divide between us. And they said, okay. So we drew up a little agreement.
I made a phone call, and you were down there, and said, come on back. So I jumped on a plane the next week, and I come down, and I think Jeff and another friend of mine picked me up at the airport, and your son and I, we hit it off pretty good. We became pretty good friends. He was just a young man then, 21, I think, and yeah, I have very fond memories of being down there working for you guys. Ric Flair's Ric Flair, and he had his flair. But at the time, he would always end his interview, and that's the bottom line. And that irritated me so much. And when I would come down to the Sportatorium on Sunday mornings when we did TV, Steve Austin, as soon as I see Steve Austin, and I'd say to him, I'd say, and that's the bottom line. And then he'd come right back and say, and that's the bottom line, just like I just said, but he added, because Steve Austin said so. And years later, we used to do this every week. I mean, every time we'd see each other, hadn't seen each other the first time of the day, we would say that to each other. And then, years later, I mean, he's a superstar. He had that moniker, and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold says so. Believe me, he didn't come up with that thing. He said that in the Sportatorium in 1988. Don Morocco. I used to just love to watch Don Morocco work. I mean, and he was his interviews. I mean, he wasn't great, but he just had a swagger about him that I just wanted to emulate. And Piper, of course, Roddy's always kind of. He was such a mentor when I first broke into business. And piece of this guy, piece of that guy, and next thing you know, I'm a clown. Mick would rake somebody's eyes because he had to, or get in a hold where he can't get out of it, rake his eyes. And I told him, I says, Mick, I said, you really don't want to rake somebody's eyes as a heel because you have to. You want to rake them because you want to, be vicious, And
can I ask you something? What do you think my chances are in this business? And I said, well, not very good. I said, you really don't have a good body, and you're a so-so worker, but you've got a great mind. If I were you, I would follow promotion side of it, editing and keep doing what you're doing. Well, was I an idiot?
You know what, you never know, right? You
No,
never
he
know.
turned out to, they complained because Matt had the habit of spraying sweet smelling cologne in a guy's bag.
Not you.
Yeah, it would happen.
Well, maybe it wasn't sweet smelling cologne, but it was aromatic.
Can you tell the story?
No,
Yeah, I'll tell him. Goes right to Jerry. Says, Jerry, somebody shit my bag last night. I'll give you 3 guesses. Matt Borne, Matt Borne, Matt Borne.
there will come a time in Vince's life when he needs your help, and I hope you'll remember me and help him. And so when Vince called and asked, I almost felt obligated to Vince Sr. Vince was having the Lex Express go around the country, and it was a miserable failure. The fans were not coming out. And I told Vince, I said, before you put the title on, I think you ought to consider that there are some great talents who just don't have the standalone charisma to be at the top of the card. And I suggested Bret Hart. If you will put the tag title on Sean Waltman and Marty Jannetty, they will take the roof off the garden next week. And he did that, and they did take the roof off of the garden. What do you think about me calling Vince? He said, Vince won't even talk to you. And I said, Jeff, the heat is with you. I think Vince likes me. And I feel pretty sure he respects me. So Jeff laughed and said, yeah, call him. So I did. And Vince said, if you put your stamp on him, I'll sign him. And I said, well, I'd appreciate it. It'd be doing you a favor. So I took him to WWE, and the world found out, and the Carters went crazy, and it got me out of TNA.